The wind howls like the dying breath of gods across the cliffs of Kattegat. Salt spray stings the air, violent and cold, as waves the size of longhouses crash against black rocks below. The sky bleeds crimson and ash, torn between sunset and storm, as if Odin himself has ripped open the heavens to bear witness. And there, standing at the edge of the world, where mortal land surrenders to infinite sea, stands a man who defies both death and destiny. Ragnar Lothbrok. His name alone makes warriors tremble and kings fortify their walls. His shadow stretches longer than any sail, darker than any raven's wing. The fur cloak wrapped around his shoulders whips violently in the gale, and the leather straps of his armor creak like the hull of a ship pushed beyond its limits. His beard is braided with silver rings, each one a story, each one a kill, each one a kingdom brought to its knees. His eyes, those glacial blue eyes that have stared into the faces of dying men and distant horizons, scan the sea as if reading the future written in the foam. But tonight, Ragnar is not searching for new lands to conquer. Tonight he is haunted. The clash of steel still rings in his ears, though the battlefield lies 3 days behind him. The screams of the dying still echo through his skull, mixing with the thunder of the storm above. Blood, so much blood, has stained his hands that he can no longer tell where the rust on his axe ends and the memory of violence begins. He lifts his weathered hand to his face, studying the scars that map his flesh like the rivers of distant countries. Each line tells a truth he wishes he could forget. "What is a king?" he whispers to the void, his voice swallowed by the roar of wind and wave, if not a man drowning in the blood of his choices. The weight of his crown, invisible yet crushing, presses against his skull. Not the golden circlet he wore when he claimed the title of king, but the burden of every soul he has sent to Valhalla, every village he has burned, every promise he has broken in the name of glory. Ragnar Lothbrok, the farmer who became a legend, the adventurer who became a conqueror, the man who became a myth, stands alone at the edge of everything he has built, wondering if it was worth the price. The fire crackles in the great hall of Kattegat, casting dancing shadows across wooden beams carved with the faces of ancient gods. The smell of roasted meat and mead fills the air, thick and sweet, mixing with smoke from torches that flicker like dying stars. Laughter erupts from the long tables where warriors celebrate their latest victory, a Saxon monastery razed to ash, its treasures now filling Ragnar's coffers, its monks now feeding the crows. But Ragnar does not laugh. He sits upon his throne, a chair built from the mast of his first ship, worn smooth by years of conquest and contemplation. His fingers drum against the armrest in a rhythm only he can hear, the beating of his restless heart, the pulse of ambition that has driven him from obscurity to immortality. Around him, his inner circle gathers, each one a piece of the intricate game he plays with fate itself. Lagertha, his first wife, his first love, the Shieldmaiden whose skill with blade and bow rivals his own. She stands near the fire, her blonde hair catching the light like spun gold, her green eyes watching him with a mixture of devotion and dangerous knowledge. She knows him better than anyone, knows the boy he was before the legend, knows the doubts that plague him in the darkness. Her hand rests on the pommel of her sword, always ready, always vigilant. She gave him sons and stood beside him through impossible odds, but their love fractured when his ambitions grew larger than their shared dreams. Now she rules her own lands, her own people, an equal in power but forever bound to him by blood and memory. Floki, the shipbuilder, the mad genius whose laughter sounds like ravens cawing at a feast of corpses. His dark-rimmed eyes gleam with mischief and madness in equal measure, his lanky frame hunched as he rocks back and forth, whispering to gods only he can hear. Floki built the ships that carried Ragnar beyond the known world, vessels that defied the wisdom of elders and sailed into legend. His faith in the old gods burns hotter than any forge, and his loyalty to Ragnar runs deeper than the roots of Yggdrasil. Yet something has begun to rot in that devotion, something that smells of jealousy and betrayal waiting to bloom. Rollo, Ragnar's brother, a mountain of a man, shoulders broad as a ship's beam, arms thick with muscle and scarred from countless battles. His face bears the permanent scowl of a warrior who fights not for glory but for recognition, not for treasure but for love. Rollo's entire existence has been defined by standing in his brother's shadow, being second to the legend, watching as Ragnar's name echoes through the ages while his own is whispered as an afterthought. He drinks deeply from his horn, the mead spilling into his beard, his dark eyes fixed on Ragnar with an intensity that burns like coals beneath ash. Love and hatred war within him, two serpents coiled around his heart, squeezing tighter with every passing year. Aslog, the new queen, a sorceress or so the whispers claim. Her beauty is otherworldly, raven-black hair cascading like a waterfall down her back, pale skin that seems to glow in firelight, eyes that hold secrets older than kingdoms. She appeared in Ragnar's life like a prophecy made flesh, claiming descent from legendary heroes, weaving herself into his destiny with words and visions. She bore him sons with names that shake the earth: Ivar, Hvitserk, Sigurd. But her presence split his world, drove a wedge between him and Lagertha, and planted seeds of discord that now threaten to consume everything. She sits beside him now, her hand resting possessively on his arm, her smile serene but her eyes calculating every word, every glance, every shift in the room's delicate power balance. And then there is Ivar, the crippled son who crawls like a serpent across the floor, dragging useless legs behind him, yet whose mind burns brighter and more ruthlessly than any warrior's blade. Even as a child, Ivar's intelligence terrifies those who witness it. He watches everything from the shadows, absorbing every lesson, cataloging every weakness, planning moves in games that have not yet begun. His face, beautiful and cruel in equal measure, splits into a grin that chills the blood of grown men. He is Ragnar's legacy and his curse, a child born of ambition and prophecy, destined for greatness or destruction, perhaps both. The celebration continues, but tension coils beneath the surface like a serpent preparing to strike. The betrayal comes not with thunder, but with silence. 3 months after the feast, as winter's grip tightens around Kattegat and ice forms on the fjords, Ragnar stands in his chamber studying maps of distant lands. His mind churns with plans for new raids, new conquests, new horizons to chase, but something feels wrong. The air tastes different. The shadows move with purpose. Floki has been absent from the shipyard for days. Rollo has been meeting with warriors Ragnar does not know, men whose loyalty was purchased rather than earned. And Aslog's whispers to her sons have grown more frequent, more urgent, more poisonous. When the door crashes open, Ragnar does not reach for his weapon. He knows this moment has been coming, written in the stars since the day he claimed his crown. The price of ambition is always paid in betrayal. Rollo stands in the doorway, backlit by torchlight, his silhouette massive and terrible. Behind him, a dozen warriors, men who once swore oaths to Ragnar, who drank from his mead and fought under his banner. Their faces are hard, resolved, purchased by promises Rollo has made. "Brother," Rollo's voice rumbles like distant thunder, "your time has ended." The words should hurt, but Ragnar feels only a strange calm, as if he has been expecting this conversation his entire life. He turns from the maps, facing his brother, and a sad smile touches his lips. "Has it?" Ragnar asks softly, "or has yours finally begun?" Rollo's face twists with emotion, rage, grief, envy, love, all warring for dominance. "I have lived my entire life in your shadow. Every deed I accomplished was compared to yours. Every woman I loved wanted you first. Every saga sung in the halls speaks your name while mine is forgotten before the echo fades. You took everything, Ragnar. My glory, my place, my destiny." "I took nothing you did not give," Ragnar replies, his voice cutting through the tension like a blade through silk. "Your shadow is your own making, brother. I never asked to be a legend. I simply refused to be forgotten." The truth of it lands like a physical blow. Rollo staggers, his hand gripping his axe until knuckles turn white. The warriors behind him shift uncomfortably, suddenly uncertain of the narrative they have been sold. "Kill me then," Ragnar spreads his arms wide, defenseless, his chest exposed. "Take your place, claim your crown, write your saga in my blood. But know this, Rollo, you will never escape my shadow by standing in the space where I once stood. You will wear my ghost like a second skin for the rest of your days." The silence that follows is broken only by the howling wind outside and the crackling of torches. Rollo's hand trembles on his weapon. A single tear cuts through the dirt and blood on his weathered face. He cannot do it. Whatever darkness drove him to this moment cannot overcome the bond of blood, the memories of childhood, the fundamental truth that for all his jealousy, Rollo loves his brother more than he hates him. The axe falls to the floor with a crash that seems to shake the very foundations of the hall. "I cannot," Rollo whispers broken, "I cannot." But as Ragnar moves to embrace his brother, to offer forgiveness and perhaps redemption, another voice cuts through the moment like a serpent's hiss. "Then I will." A slog emerges from the shadows, and in her hand gleams a blade coated with something dark and viscous. Poison. The room freezes as the revelation crashes over everyone like a wave. "You," Ragnar breathes, genuinely shocked for perhaps the first time in years. Her beautiful face remains serene, almost peaceful. "You were supposed to be the stepping stone to my son's destiny, Ragnar, not the man himself, not the legend. You have served your purpose, given me sons who will reshape the world, whose names will echo through eternity, but you have become an obstacle to their ascension. Your legend casts too great a shadow for them to emerge into their own light." The twisted logic of it strikes Ragnar like a physical blow. Even in his darkest calculations, he never suspected a slog, the woman who claimed to love him, who bore his children, who shared his bed and his dreams. "You would kill me for our sons?" he asks, voice hollow. "I would kill the world for our sons," she replies without hesitation, as any true mother would. The blade moves toward him, slow and inevitable, and Ragnar finds he has no defense against this betrayal. Not because he cannot fight, even weaponless he could disarm her easily, but because some part of him understands. Some part of him recognizes the same ruthless ambition that has driven every choice of his own life, now reflected back at him through a mother's fierce devotion. But then, a shadow moves faster than thought. Lagertha. She appears between them, her own blade catching the poisoned knife, the clash of steel sharp and clear. Her green eyes blaze with fury as she faces a slog, two queens locked in a moment that transcends personal conflict and becomes something mythic. "Not today," Lagertha growls. "Not like this. Not by poison in the darkness like a coward. If Ragnar Lothbrok falls, it will be in battle, sword in hand, not murdered by the woman who seduced him away from his true path." A slog's mask finally cracks, revealing the calculation and cold ambition beneath. "You think you still have claim to him, you who left, you who could not accept that destiny had other plans." "I left because I refused to share my place," Lagertha replies, forcing a slog back step by step. "But I never stopped loving him, and I never will. That is the difference between us. You love what he represents. I love the man beneath the legend." The truth of it rings through the hall, and Ragnar feels something break open inside his chest. A dam he has spent years building, holding back emotions too dangerous to feel. Warriors scatter as the two women engage in combat, their blades singing songs of fury and heartbreak. But Ragnar does not watch the fight. His eyes find Iva, his broken, brilliant son, watching from the corner with that unsettling smile. And Ragnar sees clearly. This was always the true betrayal. Not a slog's blade, but the poison she has been feeding their sons for years. The whispers that their father's legend must end for theirs to begin. The seeds of patricide planted in fertile ground. Iva meets his father's gaze and does not look away. In that moment, Ragnar sees his own ambition reflected and magnified, refined and made ruthless, stripped of the last vestiges of humanity that still linger in his own heart. His son, his legacy, his doom. The twist comes not in the betrayal itself, but in Ragnar's response. As Lagertha disarms a slog and the would-be assassin queen falls to her knees, as Rollo stands paralyzed between loyalty and envy, as the warriors wait to see which side will claim victory, Ragnar laughs. It starts as a chuckle, low and dark, then builds into the full-throated laugh of a man who has finally understood the cosmic joke of his own existence. The sound fills the hall, echoing off wooden beams, silencing all other noise. "Do you know what I see when I look at all of you?" Ragnar asks, his voice carrying a strange mixture of affection and sorrow. "I see myself, every ambition, every betrayal, every desperate reach for something beyond our grasp. I see the disease I have spread through my own legend, infecting everyone I love with the same hunger that has consumed me." He walks to his throne and sits, not as a king claiming power, but as a tired man accepting truth. "I am not the victim of your betrayals," he continues, his gaze moving from face to face, Lagertha, a slog, Rollo, Ivar, Floki emerging from the shadows with shame written across his features. "I am the architect of them. Every choice I made prioritized glory over love, legend over loyalty, destiny over devotion. I taught you all to reach for greatness at any cost, and now I am shocked when the cost becomes me." The silence that follows is profound, broken only by the crackling fire and the storm outside that seems to quiet, as if the gods themselves are listening. "Here is my decree," Ragnar stands again, and despite everything, command still radiates from him like heat from a forge. "A slog, you will return to your chambers and raise our sons to be better than I am. Teach them ambition, yes, but temper it with wisdom I never possessed. Tell them that their father's greatest mistake was believing that greatness and goodness were the same thing." He turns to Rollo. "Brother, take a fleet, sail west. Find your own destiny, not as my shadow, but as your own man. Succeed or fail on your own terms, and let the sagas sing of Rollo the Bold, not Rollo the Brother." To Lagertha, his voice softens. "You were always the wiser of us. You knew when to walk away. Rule your lands with the strength and fairness you showed me when I was too young to appreciate it. And know that every night in every land I conquer, I will think of what we had and what I threw away." And finally, to Ivar, he kneels, bringing himself level with his crawling son. "You will be greater than me, and more terrible. The world will tremble at your name in ways it never trembled at mine. But let my life be your cautionary tale. Power without purpose is just another word for tyranny. Greatness without love is just another form of death." Ivar's eyes gleam with tears he refuses to shed, a child and a monster in the same broken body. "Will you hate me?" Ivar asks, his voice small and vulnerable in a way it will never be again. "I will love you," Ragnar replies, "even when you become everything I fear, because that is what fathers do." The storm breaks as Ragnar returns to the cliff's edge where our story began. But he is not alone. Lagertha stands beside him, her hand finding his after all these years. No words pass between them. Words have always been insufficient for what they share. Instead, they stand in silence as lightning splits the sky and rain begins to fall, washing the blood and ash from the world. "Do you regret it?" she asks finally. "All of it?" Ragnar considers the question as thunder rolls across the heavens. He thinks of the kingdoms he has conquered and the souls he has destroyed. He remembers the first time he saw the ocean beyond familiar waters, the terror and exhilaration of sailing into the unknown. He recalls the weight of his first son in his arms and the grief of burying warriors who followed him to their deaths. "I regret nothing and everything," he answers truthfully. "I have lived 1,000 lifetimes in one mortal span. I have seen wonders that will never be forgotten and committed horrors that should never be forgiven. I am both more and less than the legend they will tell of me." "Then what will you do now?" Lagertha asks. "Where does Ragnar Lothbrok sail when there are no more horizons to chase?" He smiles, that roguish grin that first made her fall in love with him when they were both young and thought they could conquer the world without paying its price. "Perhaps," he says softly, "it is time to learn to simply be. Not a legend, not a king, just a man who has finally earned his rest." The rain falls harder, cleansing and cold, washing away the layers of myth to reveal the mortal beneath. In this moment on this cliff, with the storm raging and the sea churning below, Ragnar Lothbrok is no longer a legend. He is simply human. And somehow that is enough. The legacy of Ragnar Lothbrok is not measured in the kingdoms he conquered or the enemies he destroyed. It is written in the hearts of those who loved him despite his flaws, who followed him despite his madness, who believed in him despite his mistakes. We are all Vikings in our own way, sailing toward horizons we cannot see, driven by hungers we cannot name, building legends we cannot sustain. We betray and are betrayed. We love and lose. We reach for greatness and grasp only our own mortality. But in the reaching, in the sailing, in the daring to dream beyond the boundaries of our small lives, in this, we become more than we were. We become the stories that outlive us. We become the inspiration that kindles fires in hearts we will never know. Ragnar Lothbrok was not perfect. He was not even particularly good. But he was undeniably, irrevocably, eternally alive. And in his life, with all its triumph and tragedy, glory and shame, love and loss, he showed us what it means to refuse to fade quietly into the darkness. To live with such intensity that even the gods take notice. To love so fiercely that it reshapes destiny. To dare so boldly that centuries later, people still speak your name in whispers of awe and wonder. That is the Viking way. That is the legacy of Ragnar Lothbrok. And that is the immortality available to anyone brave enough to set sail into their own unknown seas, to face their own storms, to become their own legend. The question is not whether you will be remembered. The question is, what story will you leave behind? Scowl to the warriors who dare. Scowl to the lovers who endure. Scowl to the legends we become when we finally find the courage to be who we truly are. May your voyage be worthy of song. May your name echo through eternity. May you find Valhalla at the end of all things. A Viking legend reborn.